Alright guys, you join us in my Tesla Model 3. This is the 2021 model, facelift, made in China. Now I've had this for about just over 2 months, maybe 2 months and 2 weeks, or a week, something like that. And yeah, I've covered over 2,000 miles, about 2,100 miles so far. I've got some thoughts to share on my experience with the car. We'll get into it after this intro. I've had this car for just over 2 months now, and I've covered over 2,000 miles, and overall my experience has been pretty good. I have been very happy with this. As you know, I went to the long range, and the reason I went to the long range mostly was because it had the best balance of power and range. The performance is much too expensive, and the standard range is much too slow. So this is the perfect balance between the two, and frankly I think it's the one to go for, especially if you feel like forking out some extra £1,000 to get the performance boost, in which case what is the point of the performance model? But anyway, my experience of this has been excellent, brilliant. I have been averaging about 300 miles comfortably. When I got the car, it was still a bit cold. Winter decided to stick around a bit longer than usual. But I didn't have any issues with range in this car. Well, initially I did. Because initially my driving style was a bit enthusiastic, let's say. And the range reflected as much. But even when I was driving a bit spiritedly, I was still averaging about 260 to 280 miles. And that's with the heating on. So it was still excellent. But ever since I've sort of calmed down and, gotten over the excitement of having a fast car, I've been averaging 300 miles easily 300 miles. But I've never allowed it to get so low as to, have any sort of range anxiety. What I tend to do at the end of the day when I come back from work after the commute is just plug it straight in. So you're probably thinking I have a wall box at home. And the answer to that is that I do not have a wall box at home, because I do not have off-street parking, you see. I have one installed at my parents' house, so I can go charge there every so often, but I found myself not actually doing that because I found it entirely unnecessary to do that. I charge at home using a granny cable, or whatever it's called, an extension lead. Now you'd expect that not to work very well, but in my experience it's worked quite well. Like I said, I've done over 2,000 miles in this thing, and the majority of that has been powered through the 3-pin socket in our home. Yeah, it's crazy. It does take ages, I will be honest about that. If you allow this to run flat or low, let's say about 10%, I haven't done that, so I haven't worked it out yet. But from the maths I did, if you were to charge from 0 to 100, it would take well over 48 hours. I usually let this get to about 48% after I commute, before I charge it. And it takes about 24 hours to charge. Or should I say it did. Now, what happened was that I found out that the plug was getting a bit hot. Right? It was getting a bit hot because the car was pulling 10 amps. That's the maximum it allows for the 3-pin connection. And it was getting a bit hot and started to sort of melt the socket. So I've had to reduce it. I tested at different levels, right? I reduced it to 5, then I tried it at 6, tried it at 7, tried it at 8. And I found a happy medium between sort of how warm it gets and how quickly it charges. It's about 8 amps. So I've been charging it using 8 amps ever since. Now, charging at 8 amps means that instead of taking about 24 hours to charge from half to full, it now takes about 36 hours, which is still not bad, really. It works just fine for my commute. And it's going to work even better still, because currently my commute is about 80 mile round trip, 40 mile there, 40 mile back. But I will be changing location, not work, I'll just be changing location of my work very soon, and that's going to be about 12-ish miles, so that's going to be about 24 miles round trip. And going by my experience so far, managing 300 miles easily I'll be able to go, well, a whole week without charging and only charge once a week. So that works perfectly fine for my needs. Charging has not been an issue, range has not been an issue, and performance has most certainly not been an issue.
Very close. Ah! No! No! Stop it! No!
Now, what does it feel like driving this thing, or even owning this? Well, while driving this car, it feels incredible, really. I have no other word to describe it. It is, in fact, incredible. You just feel this sort of, well, one, it feels planted, right? I know there's all this talk about the Tailgate on the frame not being a driver's car, it doesn't handle and all this and all that. And fair enough. But the reality is that the majority of us do not drive on tracks, right? We drive in the real world on real roads. And in said world, it is brilliant. It is absolutely fantastic. It handles brilliantly. The grip is brilliant because the tires are amazing on this thing, 4-wheel drive. There is no such thing as too close a gap. You put your foot down in this thing and the gap it just disappears, right? Overtaking in this is just so easy. You don't even have to think about it, right? It just goes. So when you drive this thing, you feel, I don't know, you just feel so much power, right? On the road, it just feels so powerful. And it is an interesting feeling to get used to, especially coming from a slower car, because I came from my Honda Civic Type S. And that did 0 to 60 in about 8-9 seconds. And I've jumped from that into this, which does it in 4, right? And it's a whole new world in this thing. It really is. And it is easy to get somewhat carried away with that kind of performance and get into a lot of trouble. You see, now it doesn't take much, if any time, to easily do speeds that will end you in jail, right? So you do have to exercise some restraint to some extent while you're driving this thing, because it can easily get out of hand, right? But it doesn't take very long to, you know, exercise said constraint, because the accelerator pedal is perfectly damped, perfectly. It takes a bit of pressure, right, to get going, and the amount of pressure is so finely tuned to the point that you have to consciously, right, go quicker than you mean to go, if you get what I mean. So right now I'm doing 30 miles an hour, and it takes a precise amount of pressure, which you quickly get used to, right? To go any faster than this, you have to put more pressure. So you can't accidentally go faster than you mean to go while driving this, which is great, and it's quite helpful, really, because it can easily get out of hand. It really can. And I will admit to have quickly gotten out of hand myself, because you know, sometimes you get into one of those moods and you just want to put your foot down a little bit. Driving this is very easy, very easy. When you go into the driving settings, you can set the steering wheel to either comfort, which is very light, standard, which can be very heavy, and I think sports, I need to check what the wording is for that, which is just ridiculously heavy. I don't know why anyone would want to drive that. It feels like there's no power steering, so I don't know why you'd bother with that. I was driving in standard for the majority of the 2,000 miles I drove, but on the motorway it is a pain. I'll get back to why I don't use autopilot on the motorway shortly. But while driving on the motorway in sports, in standard, sorry, it is an absolute pain in the butt to drive this thing, because the wheel can be very heavy. It helps to keep the car stable while you're trying to maneuver. Granted, you can't make any accidental steering inputs, but good God, is it ridiculously heavy for the motorway. Around town, it's perfectly fine. It feels not much different to the my Civic I was driving, which is why I left it unstandard. But on the motorway, comfort is where it's at. It really is. But when it comes to, obviously, slowing down, as an electric car, you have regen. And in the Tesla, you don't have many controls for the regen. Now, I do wish it had some pedals behind the wheel so that I could decide when the regen was going to take place. but it doesn't, which is quite aggravating if I'm being honest, because sometimes you want to just coast down a hill, but then you can't. You see, it just goes into regen, so it just sort of starts slowing down while you're going downhill, but that's the last thing you want. And I guess it's fine, and it's getting a bit of energy into the car, but I do feel like it would use less energy going downhill if there wasn't any resistance. Anyway, I have the acceleration set in standard, by the way, because I want performance when I put my foot down. I don't want to have to wait for it. In chill mode, it is quite lethargic, if I'm being honest. So I have it in standard. But yes, anyway, when you have the brake settings in hold, that's when it has the full regen. And when you have it in that mode, you basically do not need to use the brakes, if ever. The only times you have to use the brakes really is if obviously it's an emergency situation. You need to get on the brakes quickly and the regen isn't doing it quickly enough. Which, to be fair, the regen does do it pretty quickly, but there will be situations where you will need to use the brakes, right? But that isn't very often. Or if you charge the battery to full, then you will definitely need to use the brakes, because then there is no regen at all. And the first few times I drove the car, charged it to full, I had a little bit of a rude awakening. When I lifted off the accelerator pedal, expected the car to slow down and stop as usual, and it just kept rolling. Yeah, that was one of those moments. So yeah, that you have to bear that in mind when you start getting used to this car. When you charge to full, it will not regen brake. Driving this car is very easy, very comfortable. It's very comfortable. Seats are comfortable. I find that it's quite soft, quite plush. And yeah, comfort levels are decent. The suspension is, I think the suspension is pretty well damped. To be honest, I can't really say much because the Civic I'm coming from, I had some aftermarket suspension on that, and it wasn't the most comfortable ride. So I can't really say much about comfort, because what I'm used to is quite hard. So I guess anything is better than that. But even that in mind, I still feel like the ride in this is quite compliant. It goes over bumps really well. It doesn't, it doesn't bounce around. I feel like it's quite damped. It's quite, don't get me wrong, it is a little bit stiff, but I think it's just perfectly damped, if I'm being honest. It really is. Driving this around, it's brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. I cannot fault it. It is easy to get used to it. I mean, I jumped in it, and in the first couple of miles I was already used to it. I was already used to the regen. I was already used to how it handled. I was already used to the size. The view outside is brilliant, up the front and the sides, but the view out of the back is atrocious. It's terrible. Without the reversing cameras, I do not see how you could possibly park this thing, because you can't see what's behind you. You really can't. The view is sort of angled upwards, so when you look behind you, you don't see the back of the car. And really, when you look in the mirrors, you can't really tell either. You sort of see the wide, rear quarters, the haunches, which look really good. I'll give you that. They look quite good, but you can't really tell what the back of the car is, which can be a bit weird. But luckily, you don't have to rely on the mirrors. You have the cameras, and it makes it really easy to park. Speaking of parking, this is the perfect opportunity to go into what has gone wrong with the car. Yeah, parking. My parking sensors have failed. Now I've booked it in with Tesla to have it looked at and rectified. I think on the 7th of, I'll be taking that in when that comes by. But it makes parking somewhat annoying. Now, you still have your cameras and whatnot, which is fine, it makes it doable. But given what I'm used to, with the parking sensors working, the beep, the bongs telling you how close you are to objects around you, it's quite different now having to maneuver the same car without those aids. The parking sensors not working also means that autopilot doesn't work 100% of the time. Conditions have to be absolutely perfect, like now, for autopilot to work. You see, when it's raining, autopilot will not work because it relies on the parking sensors, because that's the radar, I guess, right? Or sonar. I think it's sonar, right? It relies on that to, you know how far or how close different objects are, and you know how autopilot works. So when it's raining, it doesn't work. When the sun sets, it doesn't work. So that is quite annoying, because I can only now use autopilot in certain situations. Now that was really annoying going down to Milton Keynes yesterday, because it was raining on and off during the trip there, which means autopilot was working on and off. Very annoying. On the way back, autopilot stopped working for half the trip because the sun had set. So I had to drive myself the entire way back for about 40 miles, which was quite annoying, because really I'm used to, at this point, having a relaxing drive. I have developed rattles throughout the cabin of this car, which is it's very annoying, because you don't hear much else. Apart from the road, you don't really hear much else. So you do pick up on all the rattles. I have rattles coming from behind, just right behind. I haven't pinpointed it, but there's some coming from behind my right ear. There's one coming from the back of the car on the passenger side, very annoying. When I have some music on and I have some thumping bass, there's rattles coming from the door cards, which is annoying. So it's only been 2,000 miles, so it hasn't lasted very well, if I'm being honest. Build quality hasn't been the car's strong suit, if I'm being honest. Panel gaps are a bit ridiculous. I'll show you that shortly. Panel gaps are a bit sketchy. The trunk doesn't line up. Okay, so as I was trying to say before my GoPro overheated and stopped recording, open the front. Look at that bird. Look at that. You see, the Tesla is so green, right? Look at that. Nature loves it. They love the car.
No, I just want to be on camera.
Yeah, that's the other bonus of having this car. You get a lot of attention from birds.
Do you really though?
It is extremely easy to open the front trunk. Like, you can accidentally just touch it. But the thing is, once you touch it, it opens. I think it'll be best if you had to like double tap it to open it, because once you've opened it, you have to vacate the vehicle. Close it. Very annoying. But as you know, this 2020, 2021 models have a power tailgate. You can open it from right here. You hit open. And voila. The beauty of it is, come have a look at this. It shows you in real time where the trunk is.
I think the bird is back. Quick, babe. Quick, bird is back.
Oh, look at that. I love the Tesla.
It's the same bird.
It's the same bird.
It's back again.
Oh my goodness, it's back.
That's beautiful.
Look at it.
Oh, it's so cute.
Hello. Oh, no, come back. No, never mind. Yeah.
It's the closest I've ever seen a bird up close.
No. It shows you where the trunk is in real time. It also shows you where the wheels are in real time. So, yeah. Pretty cool. Anyway, since we're here, let me talk about how the car has held up. So as I mentioned, there's issues with the doors rattling. There's rattling coming from the speakers. There's rattling coming from the back. Very annoying. The road noise, the tire roar coming through the cabin, is ridiculous. Frankly, it's a bit too loud. It's the kind of loud where when you're in the motorway, you have to sort of turn up the music just to drown it out. So yeah, it's probably something to do with the tires, or probably something to do with the fact that it doesn't have that much sound insulation in it. But I've got some accessories that aim to mitigate that road noise coming through. So I'll be installing at some point, and then we'll see if it actually makes any kind of difference. Back here, the trim back here has sort of come loose. It is perfectly fine on that side, tight and snug. On this side, it's sort of coming loose, which is interesting. Yeah, so that's what's happened in terms of the interior. On the outside, I didn't clear brow this car, and as a result of that, there's stone chips all over the damn paint. There's gouges out of the headlights here. If you have a look at this, you see there's some gouges there. So these plastic headlights are not going to last very long, or should I say, are not going to age very well. This one is fine, but as you know, I do a lot of motorway. Well, you don't know, but I'm telling you now. I commute 40 miles each way to work, and it's done mostly on the motorway. So that's why that has happened. But since we're out here, let me just tell you where the build quality isn't the best. Now, as you can see, panel gaps a bit ridiculous. I mean, this panel gap is a bit ridiculous. Here doesn't really line up that well. The headlight doesn't line up here. Look at that. On this side is sunken in, sticks out here. As you can see, this headlight isn't installed very straight. When you look here, if you look how this is lined up, this is really tight. This is actually really decent. But if you come to this side, on this side, it's not. The fender overlaps the bumper there. Not a good look. This headlight is also not installed straight or flush. So there is that. The panel gaps on this side, a little bit ridiculous. On the doors don't line up. The bird left. Look at that. The bird. God damn that bird. Anyway, the doors don't line up flush. They don't sit flush. As you can see, the front door sits a bit proud of the rear door. It's the same on this side. The door sits a bit sunken into the panel here. On this side, we have the opposite where the door. Actually, this one is fine. This door is fine. This one isn't. It doesn't sit flush here. Now I noticed this one doesn't sit flush because when I parked it up, it had some street lights, and the light was creating a shadow on this side, and that's how I noticed. So if you look down on it like such, you notice it isn't flush there. So, yep. So those are just typical Tesla build quality issues. I've noticed that. I will show you a clip. Water gets into or gets behind the gap here where the glass sits on the seals, and condensation lines up the sort of perimeter there of the glass. Not a good look. And also when it gets a little bit wet, you put the window up and down, it makes this squeaking noise. Again, I'll show you a clip of that. I'll now put both front windows down. Very nice. I'll now put it back up. Not very good, but apart from that, the brakes can get squeaky sometimes, which is a little bit weird. I don't. This is so loud. Anyway, yeah, that's by the by. So overall, the car has been brilliant. The build quality issue aside, I can live with that. Squeakiness, rattling, and all that stuff. Again, I can live with that. I mean, the car I'm coming from is a Civic, but it is kind of a pain in the ass that this costs 50 grand. So these things really shouldn't be happening, but whatever. Parking sensors don't work, which is great. I think I already covered that. But overall, I love this car. It's been great. The boot space, got the power tailgate in action. It's a bit of a mess right now if you're willing to ignore all of this. Quite big. Only issue with this is that the opening isn't that big, so it can be a bit awkward to get things in. But if you get this accessory here, you can hang your shopping on there like such. Pretty cool. This here, I don't even know what this does. What does that do? You pull it and nothing happens. Is that too?
Maybe if you're locked in, you can pull it and the boot will open.
Yeah, but that's this here. You just pull this tab here to get out if you're stuck in the boot. So I don't know what this is for. You just sort of pull it and nothing sort of happens. I don't know what happens when you pull that. Speaking of build quality, if you come in here, what is this? Why is this not covered up? I don't know why this is exposed here. And until I put the accessory on, there was a random bolt just sticking out there. That's what this is sort of threaded onto. I don't know what that's about. If you look into these gaps here, look at it. You see that? Those are just wires. There's just a random wire just hanging out there. And if you look through this side, if you look through that side, you can see random wires running through as well. And I have been very confused by that. I mean, look at the quality of this. for a 50 grand car, I don't know about this, if I'm being honest. I really don't. But yeah, anyway, at least this has got a power tailgate, which is convenient. I haven't had any condensation in my tail lights. I haven't had any condensation in my headlights, so that's been good. The trunk doesn't, when rainwater comes down the rear window, it doesn't flow into the trunk because that has been fixed in the 2020 and 2021 models. Overall, my experience with this car has been absolutely brilliant. It's been fantastic. The performance, the looks. People ask a lot of questions, right? People, especially when they are not familiar with the car and they haven't been up close to it or seen it in person, they tend to ask a lot of questions. So if you're going to get one of these, you've got to be ready and I guess socially acceptable of the fact that you're going to have to entertain people who have a lot of questions about the car. It's all right, you know, it gets a decent amount of attention. I don't mind it. I mean, I used to get a lot of attention in my Civic anyway because it was a little bit out there. So it's not new to me, but people get really fascinated by what it looks. They come in there like, ooh, it's a spaceship. Yeah. And I have to explain to them where the dash is, or I guess the gauge cluster, how you know how fast you're going, all that stuff. Yeah, or where all the controls are, or how do you even open a glove box? Yeah, it's all fun and games. It's all fun and games, but it's just people's general curiosity when they see the car. People tend to struggle opening this door. You sort of get used to it. It's sort of a two-action kind of action, I guess. You get used to it, and yeah, it's been great. It's been great. So, would I recommend getting one of these? If you're going to use my referral link, yes, I do recommend that you get it. I'm just kidding, but yeah, I do recommend that you do get it. It's a brilliant car. I mean, for an electric car, the range is pretty much unparalleled at this price range, and the performance you get with that range, I don't think there's any other electric car that's doing it, giving you what Tesla's giving you for the price. So I would definitely recommend it. Oh, the bird is back. Oh, it's back. Did it come back to me? It just flew into the mirror. Did you see that? It just look at it. Look at it. Zoom in. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's flying into the mirror. Can I go through there? Oh, no.
It is.
Yeah, this is Taylor. Is it rolling? Yes. It is a Tesla. One thing I've come to find is that kids are very fascinated by this car, and I don't know why. Right, so this is my seating position. As you can see, I don't really fit behind me. I mean, look at my legroom. I have no legroom here, so I couldn't sit behind myself. So, you know, even though this car is as big as it is, it's quite long. Oh, there's a bird. Did you hear that noise? That was the bird.
Can we take it home?
You know what? I'm gonna send you an invoice for all the damage you caused in that bird. Alright, so as you can see, the space in the back, headroom is fine, but legroom isn't. So yeah, I couldn't sit behind myself. I might sit behind you. I mean, I can, but look again, no legroom. I've got a bit of foot room, but not really. I guess I'll be better placed in the middle, but then I have these seats on either. Yeah, space in the back isn't the greatest. And speaking of not the greatest, look at this. So I'm already in here, I'm already a bit tight, claustrophobic, so I want to, put the window down and have a look out. This is how far the window goes down. That's it. That is your lot. Speaking of windows going down, check this out. This is how, well, this goes back to the whole build quality issue, but the window is fully up. This is how it sounds when I close it. Pretty solid, pretty meaty. Now listen to this. I put the window all the way down. Never mind how slow it is. Wow, listen to when I close it. Listen to it. Did you hear that rattle? That's not a good look, is it? Window up. Solid. This is when you wobble the door. I'm not even putting that much pressure. I'm just giving a little wiggle. The whole door's just flexing. Or the door cards are just flexing. Now it's no surprise to me that this has come loose and started rattling, because that has not been screwed on very strongly. Look at how the trunk is misaligned. This is not even a little. Look at that. That's kind of atrocious. But anyway, being that as it may, would I pick another car over this? The answer is no. Now these are annoying little issues here and there. You know, there's not as much space in the car as you'd expect given the size of the car. But still, I don't tend to have passengers anyway. And the passengers I do have tend to be shorter than myself. So that is a non-issue. Now you can still get a child seat in there. I mean, it has ISOFIX points in there, easily accessible. So come in here. There are ISOFIX points here, very easily accessible. There's anchoring points up here, there, easily accessible, and they are covered. There's some in the middle. In fact, all the seats have them in the back. ISOFIX, well, the ISOFIX are only in the outer seats, but right there, very easy to get your child seats into. So it would work as a family car till your kids grow to 5, 11, then they can't fit in the car anymore. So I guess you need to bear that in mind. If you have a bit of a taller family, this might not be the car for you, but for everyone else, really, it is perfect. It really is. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch my video. I hope it's been insightful, and like, subscribe, because I will be putting more videos out there. I have a video on the accessories I have on the car so far, so I'll be linking that somewhere in the description, and yeah, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Appreciate you watching. The seals do not stop dirty water from, obviously, the rain on the road from coming up the sills. So it's even up here. It's worse in the back. Look at that. So obviously when you get out, the side of your trousers just slice across there. When you're getting in, it makes it you get dirt all down the back of your trousers. Not a good look. Do not use the windscreen washers with the window open, otherwise this happens. Learned that the hard way. Not good. So this is weird. It's telling me to stop. Oh, you just saw that, but there was nothing in front of me. So that's very strange.
Evidence said it was a bird.
No.